So let me tell you, I'm going to introduce Shai. Okay.
Introduce me.
Shai Boston and I met in Natalia's her funnel mastery course, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we met, and mind you, ladies, this is all virtual, so we don't know each other. We haven't, met each other in person, right? We met, and Shai was just this amazing ball of energy. And Shai was a master communicator. So even words that I didn't know that I needed to say or I wanted to say, Shai was like, and this is what it needs to be, and this is that, and this is this, and so I said to myself, but I love her spirit and her energy. And as you have seen throughout the summit, she brings a unique perspective and she brings a wonderful quality of leadership to those who she encounters. And I'm proud and I'm happy to say that she will be joining us as she so deservedly deserved to be in the House of Loren in the Legacy Hall, right?
Yes, the
Shai?
Legacy Hall.
Right. So we're gonna have some really exciting things coming up there around leadership and the roles we play as leaders and how to communicate as leaders, right, Shai?
Yes, Lenore.
So on that note, please, ladies, well, there are gentlemen in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's welcome Shai Boston to the stage.
Thank you so much.
All yours.
Thank you, thank you,
Enjoy.
thank you. Okay. I'm good. Okay, sounds good. I think they're pulling up the slide deck. So Jesper, can I get the tray? Okay, great. So now I remember the title because it's here on the screen. Communication that protects your power. And what we're going to be talking about is the neurodisc clarity method. And I know this is something that hasn't been talked about before, or something that maybe you're not familiar with as much. So I have my notes here to make sure that I don't miss anything because I am neurodivergent. And so what that means is I have ADHD, along with some other letters up in there, as my mom likes to call them, the elemental P of the alphabet. But so oftentimes I don't always remember things. And also, too, this plays into my story of when it comes to communication and how that can be a challenge. And that's one reason why this was so important to me and to be able to be here to talk to you about it. I want you to take a moment, though, and I want you to think about how many times have you yourself repeated yourself to a client who didn't understand what you needed them to do next? How many times as an employee did you tell them how you wanted something done on a project and they just couldn't seem to do it right or to get it done? And you ended up doing it yourself because you knew exactly what you needed in order to get it done. Or what if you were the one being told that you were too verbose or you needed to get to the point? All are ways of saying that you were talking too much. So take a moment and just think about those times. They could have happened perhaps in your childhood, your teen years. Many of us have had them happen when we were working in corporate America. So what I'm going to do today is give you a repeatable communication system. And it's something that you can use right away. So this is not something that is going to take forever to learn or forever to master. You can use it when you're doing your emails, when you're doing phone calls, when you're having your conversations, not only with your clients, when you're facing your clients, but also when you're talking to if you're still working in your corporate career, when you're talking to those on your teams, your leadership teams, and even those of you who may have a team that you are already overseeing, how you can use it with them and talk about it with them. And the whole goal and idea is that we're going to reduce miscommunication. We're going to increase alignment. We've talked about alignment a lot this week, particularly being in alignment within our bodies and our spirits. And we've talked about how we can be in alignment with our brands, like Maria just talked about, being in alignment with how we use AI and how we can make that benefit us. So we've talked about alignment in a number of different ways and subjects. And that's why communication is so important right now to talk about how we can create alignment when we're communicating, excuse me, with those that we're interacting with. And we're talking alignment across different working styles, cultures, and ways of processing. So I'll come back to that in a moment. Excuse me. I want us to take a moment, though, to reflect back on something that Dr. Laura Sarant said earlier. She talked about this yesterday, and she talked about it again today, and she said, and I'm going to quote this as best as I can. It said, our ability to lead with our voice is a skill. So she's talking about actually stepping up and using our voice, but when you're using your voice, you're communicating. So our ability to lead when communicating is a skill. And our strongest challenge, she went on to say, is not to use our voice to get a seat at the table. It's having the confidence to use it once you arrive. And again, that involves communicating because we all have a voice. We all have a voice. We all have something that we can say. You heard me say earlier in the week that once you know why the caged bird sings, you will sing too. So we all have a voice. But what are the words to your song? And how does it come across to others? And how do you get others to come with you and to connect with you and align with you so that it reduces friction and work? So, our goal to get today is definitely to reframe communication as a clarity system. And I'm going to repeat that. We're going to reframe communication as a clarity system. I will make reference I will make reference to the DISC personality test, is what a lot of people call it. It's not a personality test, not when it's used properly and done properly. DISC is a way of identifying how you communicate, the behaviors around those communication skills, and analyzing where you're strong and where you need to make some where you can have areas of opportunity. I'm not going to say make adjustments. I'm going to say where you have areas of opportunity for growth. So that helps us to have clarity. I am a DISC behavioral analyst in addition to being a certified professional in talent development. What does that mean to you? That means, as far as my CPTD, I've earned the highest level of training and education you can get, basically a PhD in my field as a talent development person, if you will, as a trainer, facilitator. That's just one aspect of what I do. But I also have done training to become a DISC certified behavioral analyst. So I can analyze your communication, your behavior, and I do it from the perspective of leadership and so forth. So we're going to establish this method so that it's going to protect your brilliance. It's going to ensure that your directives travel to where they need to go to from point A to point B with precision. Doesn't matter who's going to be receiving it, doesn't matter who you're talking to. So basically, we are moving from guesswork to a strategic framework. Those are all buzzwords, right? Strategic framework. Basically, we're going to make sure that when you use your words, that they're going to be viewed as the high capital value that they are. So let's talk about the problems that we're going to solve. Okay. And so we're operating in a communication tax. We already know that Black women pay a tax for being Black women, right? So we pay a tax for being Black, we pay a tax for being women, and then we pay a tax for being Black women. But there's also a communication tax. In fact, It's a real drain on your return on investment if there is missed communication, missed alignment, all of those things. I didn't say miscommunication, I said missed, MISSED communication, missed alignment. So when you miss those opportunities, that costs you in your ROI. In fact, one statistic shows that poor communication can cost as much as $1.2 trillion annually. Now, to put that into perspective, that's our buying power as Black women, almost equivalent. So if that's costing us in our business, then that means we don't have that currency to spend elsewhere. So we want to do what we can in order to alleviate and eliminate that communication tax. So for those of us in this room, we know that the stakes are much, much higher. There was a term that was coined called double jeopardy. And that is at the intersection, as we know it, of being Black and a woman. And so that's where we're taking this from. So this means that your clarity margin, your ability to have clear and concise communication is even thinner than our counterparts. We have no room for error. Our counterparts, you're going to learn from Michelle later on. She's actually, a mathematician, statistician, and all of that stuff. And we were talking last night about different things, and Michelle was breaking things down into percentages. Well, as from a statistician point of view, our peers are giving over and under way greater than we are. Our over and under is not even plus or minus one. We have to flatline at zero. We can't be too over and we can't be too under. So we don't have that luxury of being vague. So we see this problem manifested in three ways that we're going to go through today. And one is the rework loop. And what that means is that we have more errors that happen when there's miscommunication that robs us of our time and the time that it takes to fix them. So it not only robs us of our time, but it's going to cost us even more time to try to fix those things. Then we have the clarity burden. And what that means is that we're spending excessive energy trying to clarify what was being said, what was intended, the tone, all of those different types of things to make sure that we're not misread and misunderstood. How many of you have talked and said something or shared something in a meeting with someone and it was completely taken the wrong way? It went so far left that you're trying to figure out how do we end up on this road? And that's what we're talking about, right? And so that's unpaid emotional labor. We have been talking all this week about our nervous systems. Getting our nervous systems regulated. If you're somebody like me that not only has anxiety, you may also have depression, PTSD, trauma. All of those things impacts our ability to communicate effectively, and all of that costs us emotional labor, especially when we're misunderstood. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. And then finally, we're going to talk about the guesswork gap. If you don't have a system in place that can provide clarity, clear communication very easily, then what ends up happening is everybody else has to guess what your intent is. And as they guess what your intent is, they're just filling in whatever they think the gaps are, whatever they understood or didn't understand. And what ends up happening is you lose the protection of your time, your systems, and all of that. So we're going to talk about a framework that will protect your time, protect your systems, including your nervous system, and beat that guesswork every single time. So the outcomes we're going to have today, by the time we complete our time together in this session, you will have the tools that you need to command these very specific outcomes. You will be able to communicate with clarity in 60 seconds. Did you hear that? Was that communicated clearly? You will be able to communicate clearly in 60 seconds. You will be able to start reducing misinterpretation and friction. And what that means is that as you're talking, you're neutralizing all of that could potentially happen. There will not be much room for error. I'm not going to say there will never be room for error because you can't control other people's receptions and perceptions, but you can control what you say and how you convey it. And one of the things I'd like to make clear, this is not about code switching. This is not about using words that will allow you to assimilate into a different environment. There are times and places for that, and that can be important, especially when you're coming from a cultural nuance perspective. What we're talking about is making sure that you, as the leader you are, because we are all leaders, and whether you use this for work or at home, but you will be able to make sure you are communicating in a way that is clear and that reaches the other person. And they should be able to receive it in the way that is best for them. You may not always know that, but we'll get into that a little bit more later. And they are sitting here drinking some rum punch and tearing up. I think that's some chicken. I'm glad I was able to have a little lunch because I'd be going through this glass window right now. They're tearing it up, going to town. Anyway, so let's go ahead and keep moving forward. These are not soft skills that we're talking about by any means. They're not soft skills. We're talking about protocols that is going to protect your three most valuable assets. One more time, we're talking about your time, your energy, physical, mental, emotional, and one other thing, your credibility. How many of us have found that our credibility was often called into question because of miscommunication? Drop into the chat if you've ever felt like your credibility or your thoughts or your words were called into question because there was a miscommunication. People thought it was one thing when it was another. So that's what we're going to work on today. Let's keep moving forward, shall we? And please, as we go along, don't hesitate to drop your questions, your thoughts, anything. If you have a situation that you might want some assistance with, I will do everything that I can to assist you, okay? So let's talk about the 4 communication patterns that are primarily identified with DISC. First of all, type the word DISC into the chat if you are familiar with DISC already or have done a DISC assessment of some sort. I'd like to see how many out there may have already done that. And as you're doing that, I'm going to keep going on. So in every relationship, every boardroom, no matter where we are, these are pretty much the 4 communication traits and behaviors that are associated with our various communication styles. It doesn't mean that one is better than another. Some of us may think we identify one way and then we do an assessment, and then you have someone like me that comes in and helps to review your assessment and help you to better understand it, and you might realize you actually identify a different way. So I see so far, Candace says that she's done this. Great, Candace. And I would love to hear your experience with that and how this relates to you when we're done. And Tony's also done DISC as well. Great. So, oh, Victoria says she's DISC certified. Okay. Oh, you're DISC certified. And see, let me tell you something. Okay, so Natalia's raising her hand with a mouthful of chicken and a rum punch glass in another hand, and they'll say, I'm DISC certified. But she didn't want to be a life coach, remember? She didn't want to do all of that, but that's okay. But that's why she's a good communicator as well. And so we're going to talk about this. So let's get into this. So the D in DISC stands for dominant. Normally, this person is, yes, you are, Natalia, very much so. Normally, this person speaks very quickly. They are results oriented. They are the ones that want to get to the bottom line. When you go in to talk to them, they want you to just tell me what I need to know. Is this a yes or a no? Are we a go or a not? Ah, okay. So Candace said this is the first time she's heard of this. Got it. Well, you're definitely going to be interested in this. And then stay tuned at the end so you can see how you can learn more. So, when someone is dominant, they are very, very strong. They generally are going to be the ones that are going to be, sometimes they're going to be a little bit more outspoken. Sometimes they're the ones that are also quiet because they want you to get to the point. And once they say what they have to say, that's it. The I is influencing. And what this means is this person is really energized. They have tons of ideas. They're super, super excited, all these different things. And honestly, they're the ones that are going to get the party started. They're the center of attention. They're the ones that know how to get a crowd going. So, believe it or not, D's and I's are very good companions because they generally are going to do one or the other. So if I had to venture, I would say Natalia is probably a D and an I because she goes into the I and she's like, okay, we're going to get this summit going, blah, 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 blah. But on the other hand, hey, she's behind the scenes taking care of business. I need this done and I need it done now so we can make sure that things keep going. The next one is a C. C should actually be on the other side underneath the D, but that's okay. So C is compliant. These are the ones that we like to call, they're very precise. They're the ones that are going to make sure all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, you don't miss anything. These are the ones that are sitting in a meeting and will call you out if you missed an agenda point. They don't like to jump around. They like to follow the order of rules, so to speak. Okay? Victoria said that she has no patience. So she must be a D. Love that. But those that are compliant, they're the ones that are going to go down this. You're going to know a compliant person because they're going to use one pen for the most part when they're writing. It's going to be, they're not going to use multiple colors or something like that. If they do, they're going to use two. They're going to use bullet points, all that kind of stuff. The next one is steady. That's the S. They are the stable ones. They are very relationship oriented. These are the ones that as soon as you see them and you say hello, they're going to say, hello, how are you today? How's your family? How's your dog? How's your cat? How's your aunt? How's your uncle? What about your great cousin that was living? They're going to go there with you. That's who they're going to be. Now, what's interesting about each one of these is that while none is better than the other, S's are the most flexible ones out of all of the letters. They are the ones that learn to be, for lack of a better term, people pleasers. We will adjust accordingly. And I share that because as we talk about this a little bit more and we start talking about communication, you may start to recognize where you might fall in line when it comes to communication, which will also help you to understand why there are times when your communication is or is not heard or received in the way that you would like. So when we look at the wheel or look at the template on the screen, usually, D's and I's can work together. D's and C's normally are on the same side. So C would normally be where the S is. So I mixed that up a little bit, but that's okay. It is hard for a D to go to an S, to be a relationship person. It's a rare person that can do that. It is normally hard for an influencing person to communicate and work with somebody who is compliant because they're so harried. They just want to go, 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 go. And I've got this idea and that idea. And this is the one, if you've got that one girlfriend that calls you up at like 11 o'clock at night and be like, girl, I have the best idea. Let's just rent a car. No, no, no. In fact, let's just take my car and we're going to drive cross country. That's what we're going to do. Let's do it right now. That's the impulsive person, okay? The influencing. So it's normally hard for them to go across the spectrum. And this is one reason why communication ends up in a jammed log for so many, because they're trying to communicate with somebody that does not communicate like them. And they're only communicating in the way that they know how to communicate. So if I'm a D and I want to get straight to the point, I'm going to be really frustrated talking to an S who wants to sit there and talk about how blue the sky is today. Is that understandable to everyone how those all work? So there's something further that comes into this, and I alluded to it, and I'm going to go ahead and take our attention there now. And that is the cognitive aspects of communication. So, when I speak about cognitive differences, I'm also talking about including neurodiversion. We're all neurodivergent, by the way. Don't get it twisted, because no one person's brain is the same as someone else's brain. Okay. But for all intents and purposes, humans are divided into two categories: neurotypical, which means most people do the same thing the same way, and those of us that are neurodivergent, we think and process differently. So that means we have basically different hardware with different defaults. We can all buy the same. I'm a Samsung girl, so I'm not going to even reference that other phone that I could eat. But we can all buy the same Android phone. But I guarantee you, if you open it up, we've all got it set up differently. My husband has 11 different types of tabs, and there's like one app on each tab. My mom's tabs are all over the place. I don't know what she has going on. My tabs are neat and organized and in folders. And one of the guys at the store was like, "Ma'am, you have so many apps on your phone." I was like, "I didn't ask you that. Just change my phone over and so I can get out of here." But that's a story for another day. But the point is, we all have ways that our brains function and operate, and they're all differently. Some of us operate more for speed. If you were to see Natalia in action, Natalia is a spitfire. She's going, going, going. Some of us are more depth. So that would be someone, if you were looking at someone on our panel, that would be someone like Cheryl, who's going to stop. She's really going to think deeply about things before she speaks or says something. Some of us are all about connection. That would be me and Maria, basically. We're there as the bond and the connection. And then you have some that are more precise. That is going to be our sister friend. Oh, and she's gonna Michelle. I was like, well, I said Maria's name and Michelle's name went out my head. But Michelle is a mathematician, a statistician. So to her, everything has to make sense and align. Excuse me, pardon me. So this is not about erasing who we are. This is not changing how we think, how we process. This is not softening or shrinking back. We've talked this week about standing loud, speaking up, using our voice, being true to ourselves and being authentic. And that's what this is all about when it comes to communication. What this is about is making sure that we have some sort of clarity system in place so that we can communicate effectively no matter how brains are processing information. When we normalize everybody's brain function, everybody's processing, everybody's communication style, no matter what it is, then we can remove all personal judgment and just solely focus on results. And for all of us, the results we want is client retention and revenue generation, period. So let's move along and talk about 3 miscommunication triggers, because we all have things that trigger us. So, where does this breakdown happen in communication? It's going to start with one of these three triggers. First, it could be the hidden assignment. That's where we receive a request and it's so vague that nobody knows what the next step is. Have you ever had a meeting for the sake of a meeting and you're sitting there trying to figure out why was this even a meeting? And you're going, it couldn't have even been an email because we don't even know what the point was to begin with. So when there are processes, instructions, when there's communication that just does not connect and make sense and is too broad, that's when you're in this hidden assignment. The requests just are so vague, you have to fill in the gaps and make assumptions. And even if you're asking questions, they're going to say, well, figure it out. And you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be figuring out. The other one is the processing collision. And that's where someone who's like a dominant has a need for speed. They need to move quickly and they run into someone who might be a C or an S. They're going to think a little bit slower. They're going to process the information. They want to make sure they're doing things right. They might even want to ask questions. And the other person's like, I don't have time for you to ask questions. I don't have time to give answers. I need this done. I need it done now. No excuses, no this, no that. And if you can't do it, then I'm going to go ahead and do it for myself because I know I can do it and get it right. And they're going to multitask 50, 11 million things, and they're still going to get it done. So that's what we're talking about there. So that can cause a lot of challenges. But the most critical one for all of us in this room is tone translation. We get judged all the time by the tone we use. I'll give you an example. When I was working at the cruise line, right before I left, I had a boss who worked out of our Seattle office. I was at the corporate headquarters down in Miami. And we already struggled with our communication, which is one reason why this is such a topic near and dear to my heart. I was trying every way possible to communicate with this gentleman in the way that I could, and in a way that I thought he would understand. We were on a call one Friday evening. I will never forget this. And this is just one of many calls, but this was my final straw. And we were talking, and he literally yelled at me on the phone and he said, um, the word is about to go out of my head. Mm. Basically, he was telling me to stop talking down to him. And I said, I'm sorry. I don't understand. Condescending. That's the word I'm looking for. He says, stop talking condescendingly to me. And I said, I'm sorry. I don't understand. You're being condescending and you need to stop it. And he's yelling at the top of his lungs with his door close to his office to the point that the office secretary, who worked several feet away, sent me an instant message and said, Shai, what are you saying to him? Because he is yelling. We can hear him through the walls. And I said, I'm not saying a word to him. I don't even know what he means by that. I was being condescending to him. I was like, I was so confused. And when I hung up the phone, you know how we get that angry cry? That's when you're angry and you just start crying. And you're crying because, it's like that glory tear, you trying not to hurt somebody. And I had that, but I was hurt because I didn't understand, where did this go wrong in this communication? It was so horrible. And I was going on vacation. When I came back the following week, I promptly turned in my resignation and said, here's my 30-day notice. I was a manager, so I wanted to be fair. Here's my 30-day notice. I can't do this anymore. So the tone is what always gets misconstrued when it comes to us as Black women. Too often, the directness that we may sometimes have is misread as intent or attitude. Even our clinical focus, if we're there and we're focusing on the work that we're doing, those who don't share our patterns of communication, who don't know how to read the rooms that we're in, will often mistake that. So when we lack a system, people will fill in the blanks with their own biases. So they will police our tones. You can say something smiling and as just polite and everything else, and people will still police your tone. It's similar to when, you might be coming from a meeting and you're thinking of something in your head and you're trying to remember what you're supposed to do next or who you need to contact. And somebody walks up on you, goes, "Oh, why aren't you smiling? Are you having a bad day?" And you're like, "Do I have to smile all the time? No. I'm sorry. I'm coming from a meeting. I didn't even see you." So, um, I'm looking here and Tony says she had the same thing happen to her when she asked someone at work a question and they yelled at her and said she was being aggressive. That is tone translation, tone policing. That can come from their own viewpoints for whatever reasons. So we've talked enough about the communication styles, the collision course that we're on and all these things. So how do we fix it? Right? Um how do we fix it? How do we work with our teams, our clients, our employers to get the job done so that we can go back to focusing on what we really want to focus on, which is generating revenue for us, as much as possible. So we're going to go to the clarity loop to ensure that there are no blanks for anyone else to fill in. Before I do that, let me take a look at some of the comments here. Monique says, "It's ridiculous that the secretary messaged you to ask what you were doing or saying instead of checking on me. You didn't deserve that in that situation." Um was basically source of the universe telling you to move on from that place. And you know what the funny thing is, Monique? I was already planning on leaving anyway. I just bumped up my resignation a couple of months earlier. I had already mapped out when I was going to resign and how I wanted to do it. It just bumped it up earlier. And then they did me a favor and said, "You know what? Just work the next 2 weeks and you can have the last 2 weeks off paid." So I have 2 weeks off paid and left. So that was great. But um I don't think that let me clarify this. I really don't think that she meant it in a sense of that I was necessarily doing something wrong. She was so shocked at what was happening. She thought I might have been delivering some bad news or that something had gone wrong. That's what I really think it was, because she was constantly messaging me like, he's going off again, like, "Oh, you need to be ready because he's not in a good mood," things like that. So I don't think it was necessarily her checking me, but I could be wrong. That could have been how I chose at that time to accept that, because you're absolutely right. She could have been going like, "Girl, what are you saying to him that's causing him to act such a fool?" Either way, that wasn't on me. That was how he was receiving the communication. And again, even though I thought I was communicating clearly, and I wish I had a recording of the conversation because I don't think I said more than just a few words. The reality is, you're meeting somebody where they are, and we never know where that person is. So he could have been yelling at me because he was mad about something else. He could have been yelling at me because of the fact that I was being compliant, if you will. Who knows? I don't even stress over that anymore. Michelle said, "I have been tone policed my entire career." And honestly, when we work in environments where we're one of or one of only, whether that is from a gender perspective or a racial or ethnic or nationality perspective, that can happen. Or if we're in an industry where certain cultures or certain genders tend to dominate. You know, when I was working in Silicon Valley, I didn't have a voice at all. When I worked at one company, I didn't have a voice because, frankly, I was working in the department where I was like one of two Black women in the entire department, one of whom was an HRIS manager. So she got to sit in her office and do nothing but tech work, and nobody bothered her because they needed her because she kept the systems up and running so they can do what they needed to do. And I was the one that was out mixing in and about with everyone else. And I was so misunderstood in that department to the point that I actually got called into the director's office for reverse discrimination. Yeah, let that boggle your mind. That's a story for another day. I might have to save that for my podcast, but you know, it happens. People misunderstand because we were from different worlds and they didn't understand the world that I was from. So all of that happens. So let's go ahead and start moving forward. I want to make sure that I covered everything that I wanted to cover. So we're going to start talking about the clarity loop. Okay. So what I've shared with you is just a small snippet, a very small snippet of the information that I can glean from DISC in regards to communication, behavior, alignment, leadership, and so forth. But let's talk about the clarity loop because this is your framework. Take a screenshot, write it down. This is going to be your framework going forward in communication. This is how you can get to clarity and alignment within 60 seconds. Let's walk through some of the steps. So, if you look at the very top of the screen, it says purpose. So state what exactly you're talking about. What is the topic? What is the point? What are we trying to get to? So we'll have some examples in a moment, but just think about that. So when we talk about purpose, this is about blank. Next is the priority. You want to define the very specific outcome. I always say, what's the end game? What's the end result? What's the goal? What are we trying to achieve? What is the expected outcome for this conversation or for the statement that we're about to make? Next, after that, is preferences. So this means what is the format? Dictate to the person you're speaking to the format you want to receive this in. Do you want a 5-minute call? Do you want a quick 3 bullet point update? Do you need a full on formal document or a report? Don't let the other person choose or have the opportunity to choose the wrong form because you've left that gap open. And what you really wanted was 3 quick bullets. And what they decided to do was to call a 30-minute meeting. Okay. Next is the proof. So this is kind of like an audit, right? You're going to say to them or ask them, what is your first step? So this means that they have internalized the directive you've given them. This means that you have communicated what your expectations are and you are checking for alignment. The last one is define what exactly is due and most importantly, what done looks like. So this eliminates the whole rework loop. Now we've got to go back and do something again, or it actually also eliminates you having to go back and do the work because I know what I wanted to begin with and I can do it right and I can do it faster. So you want to establish what exactly does it look like when the directive is followed. So, what does this look like in real time? Let's go to some examples. So, let's say that you're talking to someone giving you some authority statements. The first statement is handle this ASAP. And you're like, can I get a please? Can you ask me if I can handle this ASAP? But that's a directive. So that is an invitation for a processing collision and a hidden assignment to come crashing into your space because they haven't really given you any directive on what needs to be handled, how they want it handled, what the timeline looks like, what done looks like when it's done, and you're ready to give it back to them or you fulfilled the request. So that is a challenge. The next one is the keep me posted. Circle back next week. So you might get all three of these in one sentence. They might walk up to you, hand you a document, you know what, get this handled ASAP, keep me posted on it and circle back next week. What am I handling? How do you want me to keep you posted? And you said circle back next week. Does next week mean like Monday? Friday? Close the business Wednesday? Is next week even next week? Because some people will say, for instance, next weekend, and they actually mean the weekend that's coming up, the Saturday that's about to come up. See, when I say next weekend, I'm not talking about this upcoming weekend. I'm talking about the following weekend, right? There's lots of arguments out there about bi-weekly. And what does that really mean? So that's the whole point. Those are allowing gaps to take place. And when you have gaps, that's when you have people filling them in and miscommunication happens. So let's take these same words, handle this ASAP, keep me posted, circle back next week, and let's see how we can use the clarity loop to fix this. So handle this ASAP. Our purpose is this is about the Q3 client audit. That's what we would say. This is about the Q3 client audit. I need the final budget variance report. So that's what handle this ASAP means. We're being more specific. Then the next is keep me posted, which means what they really want going into preference is send this as a 3-bullet email summary. Now there's no doubt how they want you to handle the document that you have just received. And then circle back next week. What that means is next, done looks like a confirmed PDF in my inbox by Thursday at 4 p.m. What's your first step? Now, you don't have to use those words specifically, but this is how we start using all of this in the clarity loop. And now we are avoiding that processing collision, the hidden assignment, and also the tone check in most cases. So you would walk up to Barbara and be like, Barbara, this is about the Q3 audit. I need the final budget variance report. Send this as a 3 bullets email summary to me, please. And when it's done, I would like to have a PDF, a confirmed PDF in my inbox by Thursday at 4 p.m. Just checking for alignment. What's going to be the first step? You can use this with your clients. For instance, let's say that you are a travel agent. I'm just pulling that out because I know that one kind of best. And there were times where I needed my clients to get back to me with the full legal names and birthdays of the guests that were going to be traveling with them. So I would say to make sure that I get the room booked properly and their names are showing properly on their cruise ticket, I need the full legal name and birth dates for each one of your clients. Send that to me in email in bullet form for each one person. Or I might say, send it to me in a spreadsheet format with each person on a separate line. When that is done, then that will look like a spreadsheet or a Word doc or an email that comes to me on such and such a date. I would specify a date by this time. That will allow me to make my deadline with the cruise line. With that said, can you let me know what was your understanding of that request? What was the first step? Some still might take it as it being a directive. That's okay. You can choose your wording, and I don't go into it here, but I do talk about it when I talk to ones about DISC. I talk about word choices and how to use certain word choices. And I talk about how to assess where the other person is on the DISC spectrum so that you are able to connect to them and use the words that will allow them to receive the message. But the point is, do you see the difference between handle this ASAP, keep me posted, and circle back with me next week? And this is about the Q3 client audit. I need the final budget variance report. Send this as a 3-bullet email survey. Done looks like a confirmed PDF in my inbox by Thursday, about 4 o'clock. What's your first step? If you see the difference, you're getting the point. If you don't see the difference, then I would encourage you to walk back through the clarity loop steps again and to talk it out and say it out loud. Even record yourself if you have to. Use your voice recorder on your cell phone just so you can determine, how am I saying this? Is this coming across clear? Am I making sure I'm not leaving room for gaps for others to fill in with their own biases, their own intentions, their own everything? So remember the steps that we talked about. We are going to use purpose and outcome and make sure that they are stated clearly. We're going to make sure that the steps are listed in bullet. We're going to say what done defined is, and it's going to have a deadline. And then the first step, and then the ETA requested. So that's what we did in the previous rewrite. Now, what I'm going to do is just take a moment and go over some examples. So let's go through a couple of examples, and I would love for you to pop into the chat your thoughts on how you would rewrite these statements. And here's an example for you on the screen of how you can follow this, okay? And check all the check boxes. So here's one scenario. You receive a Slack message. This is a corporate environment you're working in. You receive a Slack message. We need this ASAP. Keep me posted. Now, that should be relatively easy for you to do, considering we just went through that. How would you rewrite that so that you could reword it differently and avoid having any gaps in clarity? So take your time and let's see what we come up with. Danny, I'm glad you're enjoying the clarity loop. Thank you for sharing that information. Really appreciate that. So while you guys are working through this, perhaps you're writing down some thoughts and ideas. Let's talk about this one again. So the corporate prompt is, we need this ASAP, keep me posted. And we used an example of that. Ah, Victoria is responding. Let me see if I can get your. She says, Thank you for this inquiry. For clarity, that's always a good way to start. If someone is approaching you, definitely rephrase your understanding of their request. If you're the one making the request, you can say, this is about the project deadline. The outcome is a status update on the hiring phase. Send me 3 bullets by 5 p.m. today. To ensure we're aligned, what's your first move on this? That sounds super direct, but you can use the words that you're comfortable with. But the point is to stick to the formula of stating what the purpose is, because people want to know the why. If I'm going to bump something else, why am I bumping this? They want to know what the outcome is supposed to be. State that clearly. What are the steps? How do you want them to send it to you? How do you want the information received? Clearly define the deadline and then ask for the first step with that ETA. So this way, all the bases are covered. So here's the next one to think about. Now, let's say that you are talking and you're talking with the client, and the client asks you this question: can you just add this one thing to the scope? You know how clients love adding things after you've signed a contract. So the client says, can you just add this one thing to the scope? How would you use the clarity loop to respond to them? I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about that. Okay. So while you're thinking through that and writing some down your thoughts and pulling them together, here's an option. So when the client says, can you just add this one thing to the scope? You can say, this is about the additional feature request. The outcome is a separate change order quote. I'll send that as a PDF by Tuesday. Done looks like a signed addendum before we start. Does that timeline work for your first step? I'm going to read that again because that was a mouthful, but listen to the words that are being used. The client says, can you just add this one thing to the scope? And you've already got a signed SOW, scope of work. So your rewrite or how you respond back is, this is about the additional feature request. The outcome is a separate change order quote. I'll send that as a PDF by Tuesday. Done looks like a signed addendum before we start. Does that timeline work for your first step? So you basically said, okay, I'm going to respond to you about your request. So you're stating the purpose. And you said the outcome is that there is going to be a change order that is going to be presented. It's going to be quoted. And you're going to send it out by a specific date. And you're telling them, before we move forward, this is what needs to happen. And what has to happen within a certain time frame. So that's the assigned addendum before we start. And then you're doing the ETA. Does that timeline work for your first step? Which basically says, I'm not doing jack on this until we get this signed. So, what I'm going to challenge you to do is I'm going to challenge you to think about this clarity loop. I can't even talk now. And I want you to start making these micro shifts. Do the headline first. So, what's the purpose? Define what done looks like in every request, no matter how it comes to you. And then always ask for the first step plus an ETA on when that's going to happen. Even if you do just a couple of those micro changes, you will find that there are some big differences. Now, so that's the 48-hour challenge. Go ahead and take a clip of that. Even if you only do 3 of these things, you will still be moving towards more clarity and less gaps. You'll be moving towards the ability of syncing up with others. So, what I'm going to do now, I have a couple of minutes left. I'm willing to take, not willing, I'm open to receiving any of the questions that you have, whether it's your hard questions, anything like that. Let me know what questions you have regarding difficult stakeholders or those that are recurring tone translation issues, things of that nature. I'm willing to take those. I am looking in the chat windows and in our WhatsApp groups for those. And after that, we'll talk about some other things just briefly. Okay. Well, with that being said, what we're going to do. You're on at 4:30. It's 4:26, man. Oh, see, get all interrupted by the diva. No, just kidding. Maria is going to come in and join us. And she's bringing my mom.
And your mama's going to have a seat right there.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, my mom does not do social media or anything else, so this is amazing that she's here. So let me introduce you to the woman who got me started on my path to success, my mom, Patricia Martin.
Good afternoon,
So, Shai, Patricia is not here for you to interview her. Right? You know why she's here?
No, why?
She's here to tell you what, Miss Pat. What, Miss Pat?
how proud I am of you and in your journey. And especially how this week has really brought you to a great level with the rest of these beautiful young women that I have met this week.
Oh, we got to turn the mics
Yeah.
on. Okay, there we go. Okay.
So this is why I'm here, is to share, as I said, how proud I am of you, how proud I am of what you have become and what you will yet do, and how you beautiful women this week have shared this journey. And especially because you're meeting for the first time, it's something unheard of. So it just topped off everything the way this week has been, and you and your life.
And I'm not
Wow.
I'm not going to let you say anything because I know I'm getting emotional, guys. But the reason we were having a conversation back in the conference room, and Miss Pat told us something so interesting, that when you were a baby, what did she like doing? What did she like doing, Miss Pat?
I enjoy listening to her starting out trying to talk. I listened to the sounds she was making as a baby. And I thought that was the most exciting thing in my life. I couldn't wait to hear what she had to say. I knew she had something to say. And I just thought one day I'm going to know what these sounds are. And that's what I lived for. And then one day she did. She spoke clearly. And she's been speaking ever since as a baby. And I think she was probably around 8, 9 months when the clarity came. And she's never stopped. Never. And here you see the result of that.
Here you are. So I have to say that Miss Pat put a book in your hand from a very early age.
Yes.
And she said that you just were a constant learner.
Yes.
And it was just so beautiful that she said that she was so excited to hear the words come out of your mouth after all the babbling that you did for many months.
I was trying to get my thoughts together.
Exactly. So we were in there. We were saying,
Mhm.
I wonder when Shai's going to finish. Pat said, "Oh, she's going to go right up until the very end." So that's why I was cracking up when I told you I was coming in. You're like, "Well, I have until 4:30. It's 4:28."
I told her
So,
we know how to tell time and that you were going right up to that moment.
so your mom knows you well.
Normally I go over, so
Oh
I
my
was really
goodness.
working hard to stay under.
That is so funny. But you know what? The real, and I thank you so much, because as Shai said, Miss Pat doesn't do this, and
No.
at all. She told us why. But we had some beautiful advice from Dr. Cheryl back there, and I think Dr. Cheryl was so right. People who are watching this, they need to see and they need to hear this, because so many don't have moms that they can have in their corner to support them.
Mhm.
Some of our friends, our moms, are not here to support them, to look at them with such pride. When you were talking, mom was right there front and center, right? Front and center. And it's a beautiful thing for us as members of this panel to have you supporting Shai, because community is not just one generation. Community extends from past generations to future generations. And you two embody that so beautifully. And we all told you you raised a beautiful daughter, and we stand by that.
Thank you.
And you have a beautiful mom.
Thank you.
You have a beautiful
Thank you.
mom.
I appreciate
Do
that.
you have anything you need to say to mom?
Yeah, now that I got to wrap up. No.
Yes.
No. I like I said, my mom knows how much I love her. I've told her that. I was so happy she could be here
Mhm.
with me on this journey. And I think Patricia here online summed it up best. She's like, not here, crying face. And she goes, Miss Pat is a vessel for all of our mothers.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the things that has been missing out of our communities a lot of times. We need women of all ages to be there and to be a part of our
Mhm.
lives and our journeys. We learn from each other. And we've had multiple generations already. So that's really, really important. And that is what helps us to continue to get clarity in our own lives in a variety of ways. I'm only talking about communication. Maria talked about branding, others talked about, our health and things like that. So when we are there to support each other, when we have our mothers, our spiritual mothers, the mothers we adopt, whatever family we choose to have around us, that's what makes all of this worthwhile. My mom and my husband have been my biggest cheerleaders. I can't leave him out as well. He'd be right there with Nathan, or Nate. I keep saying Nathan, but yeah. So I do know that I'm blessed, and I'm grateful to be blessed with that. And Danny says, great to see moms supporting. Yes, moms are the best.
That's right.
I did want to ask before we go on and introduce our next speaker, I want to say, first of all, thank you all for being with me. If you want to even just put up my slide, I just wanted to talk about what I have available. So for all of you that are here with me, this is a QR code you can scan. If you want to do a deeper dive for yourself and learn more about your communication and behavioral style and how you connect with the rest of the world, I'm offering a clarity snapshot and coaching debrief. It's for $197. Or if you're choosing not to do that, you can join my priority mailing list, which gives you first notifications of all of my webinars, my courses, things like that, and discounts as well for taking those. So you can sign up for that. I promise you I will not spam you, because I hate being spammed. I will email you only when absolutely necessary and to keep you informed. But I hope that you will join me for diving deeper and learning more about yourself and how you communicate, how this can impact your leadership and what type of leader you are. I analyze all of that. We talk about that, and we set up a plan for how you can move forward in this new framework and information that you now have about yourself. So feel free to go ahead and scan that information, the QR codes on the screen. And I want to thank you all for being here. And I want to thank my mom who supported me from day one on this journey. And I do have to throw a shout out there to my husband who's at home. Thank you for supporting me as well.
Very nice. And thank you so much, Miss Pat, for blessing the community with your smile and your kind words and words of wisdom.
Thank you.
There's nothing like love and family. And when you can love the family that you have, that's the greatest thing we can have.
You heard it here first. So,
Yes.
ladies, thank you. Would you
Thank
like